Hello, my name is Mark Pimentel. I'm a CAM application specialist here at Hawkridge Systems, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can create geometry for 5-axis drilling. So when you have holes that you need to drill that are at angles that are not basically in the X, Y, or Z directions, you're looking at possibly using your 5-axis drilling module inside of CAMWorks. Now I should say right from the beginning that if you do have holes, such as what we see on this part here, you could actually use the extract machinable features to find those holes. That will allow you to just, in a single click, find the holes on their individual index planes. CAMWorks will actually add the mill part setup for you so you can drill them in those planes. And by doing it with this method, you actually generate cycles, drilling cycles in your G-code. So you could take advantage of things like your peck drilling, your tapping, your reaming, whatever it is you're doing with your cycles, whatever you're doing with your drills. And this is a really quick way to do it if you have a part that allows you to do it. Now, that being said, there are some parts where you don't necessarily need to see the cycles in the code. You can use the long form of the drilling code. And also there are some parts that it takes forever to do the automatic feature recognition. So in this case, we'll see how you can use the multi-axis mill 5-axis drilling method to achieve the same sort of thing. And the first is we need to take a look at that operation. So I'm going to jump to the operation tree. I have multi-axis mill where I've selected all the faces on screen. I've set my method to drilling, which means now my pattern is looking for the lines. And the lines are essentially just any 2D or 3D sketch inside my SolidWorks model. So that's what I'm about to create. I'm going to create some lines so that we can control the vector of our tools inside of CAMWorks. So I'll jump back to my SolidWorks tree. And let's just add a quick 3D sketch. Now with these lines that you have to create, you can see that there is some repetition in these holes. I'm going to try and take advantage of that in my geometry. But first I'm going to start with these first 3 cedar holes. And I'll start with this one here. When you're creating the vectors for your holes, I usually just start with a line. And the direction that I create the line is going to be the direction of the drill. So I want the drill to go from that point to that point. So I'm going to keep that in mind while I put this in place. If I click on the line, hold the control key, and then click on the internal surface of that hole, I now can add a concentric mate. And I'll just click on that to allow that to be there. Now, this point is pretty much where I want it to be. I just want it to be right on that surface because I'm not looking to drill air. If I'm looking to have any kind of lead-in of a sort to my drilling, I can do that, but I want these to be locked into the exact positions of the holes. So reducing my cycle time, I'm just going to basically say that point is coincident with that face. And I'll do the same for the internal surface as well. So this point right here, holding the control key, clicking on that internal surface, and again I can say on surface. And that is a 3-dimensional mate that you can add to your lines. You'll see that that is now concentric and it starts at the beginning and the end of the holes. Now, this internal surface being a curved surface, you can see that the hole actually continues on to this point here. So the tool line vectors we're creating here don't necessarily have to be the beginning and the end of the drilling operation. In the operation itself, I can extend the depth of the tool. I can extend the depth of the feature. So right here, I'm just kind of giving it a general idea as to where the hole is. Let's continue with the other 3 holes. So I'll just create a line, kind of freehand it for now. Again, keeping track of where my points begin and end. I'll grab the line, hold the control key, click on the inside surface of that hole, and once again, just make that concentric. Now, because we're dealing with 3D and I kind of freehanded it, it doesn't look exactly where I want it to be. So what I'll do is before I add any mates, I'll just click and drag that to a general position that makes sense for what I want to do. And you can kind of see that it's in the right position now. So let's get this locked into place. Click on that first point, hold the control key, click on the outer surface. That is on surface. And we'll do the same for the inside. You'll notice that I'm doing a lot of clicking, a lot of rotating of the part. So if you have multiple lines you have to draw, this can be somewhat tedious to go around and draw every individual line. So what's usually best is to look for repetition in your sketching, and then that way you can do some patterning. So I'm just going to finish off this last line here. I'll click on that line, internal surface, get that concentricity there. Maybe bring these guys close to where I need them to be. Okay, and then we'll just continue with what we're doing. So outermost hole, outermost surface, on surface. Now this hole being a blind surface, sometimes you can hover over the edge and then find the center of a flat circle. I'm just going to kind of cheat a little bit and just say that point is on plane or on surface. It ends up meaning the same thing in this context, and now that point is on that blind hole bottom. So now I have those 3 holes. I can do the same thing I just did for the other sets of holes here, but because of the amount of rotations, because of all the clicking I'd have to do to line those up, I'm going to see if there's any repetition in my part. Let me just exit out of this 3D sketch. I'll notice that there is a mirror and a pattern used to create those features. I'm going to try and utilize the same sort of things in my 3D sketching. To do that, I'm actually going to just create another 3D sketch. Now in this 3D sketch, I'm going to copy what I did from the original one. So to do that, I'll just go to Convert Entities. And the entities I want to convert, that's basically just the sketch itself. So if I click on that sketch, click the green check mark, it brings over a copy of those 3 lines. And now that I'm inside a separate 3D sketch, I can now do some patterning. Now, I call it patterning only because you can take advantage of things like mirror and translations, but it is not a full pattern like you would see in your 2D sketching or with your solid model features, because I can't repeat the pattern. So what you're about to see is basically translations and mirroring. It's not necessarily a full ability to pattern, but it still gives me some ability here to take advantage of the repetition, the symmetry. The first is, let's do a mirror of the entities in my 3D space. So I'll just do a window select of those 3 lines. The mirroring about, I have a plane. Now, the right plane is by default there, but I can create all the planes I need using SOLIDWORKS functionality. So now I have 6 of my holes already pretty much defined. Now I want to repeat them over there. It looks like that was what the linear pattern was for my solids. So I'm going to do a linear pattern here as well by going up to Move Entities, and I'll just go to Copy Entities. But you'll see that you have also Rotate Entities there as well. The entities to copy, again, Window Select. And then in my translation, I can give it a direction, or in the case of what I had before, I could have just said in the Y direction, I'll give it possibly 10. I believe that was the translation amount there. So now I have all the holes on screen in one 3D sketch. I'll go back to my operation tree. I've already predefined this operation, so all I have to do now is just go into the lines and choose my sketch 4. I'll zoom in, I'll make sure those arrows are in the right direction. And since I sketched everything going from the outside in, all those lines should be pointing in the correct direction. Otherwise, you'll notice that when you select a sketch, you can do a reverse direction. Keep in mind that is reversing all the lines. So if any one of those single lines was in the wrong direction, I'd have to go back to the original 3D sketch to reverse the direction. But that right there is pretty good where it needs to be. In my case here, I'm going to take advantage of my multi-axis mill clearance abilities, and I'll say let's do a clearance about the y-axis so I can clear to a cylinder. We'll do a preview on that. And now we'll see that we have a toolpath that does all of the lines on my part, and all I had to do is define the first 3 and then do some mirroring and some translations in my 3D sketch. Hopefully this was helpful for the creation of your 5-axis drilling. If you have more questions relating to CamWorks, give us a call on the main tech support line found on our website, and stay tuned for the rest of the videos on this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.